From the studios of KENW on the campus of Eastern New Mexico University, it's You Should Know, featuring the people and events of Eastern New Mexico and West Texas.
Welcome to You Should Know. I'm your host, Evelyn, and today I actually have three guests. One's a little more difficult to find, but first off, Ann Beck, thank you for being here. Ann and Linda Sumption. Ladies, nice to have you here. And our other guest is, because today's show is about shelters and rescuing animals and welfare of animals, we have a little adorable friend with us, Bear, and she's actually out of a rescue, or in a shelter, and she's been rescued, so she's going to hang out with us today. So, ladies, thanks for being
Nice
here, and let's get some information out there for people of what they can do to help animals. So, let's start, and give me a little bit of background about yourself.
Well, I've been here in Portales at Eastern New Mexico University for 21 years in the Department of Theater, and I actually started working in rescue before I came here. I was in Toledo, the University of Toledo.
Okay.
And I worked with a Save a Pet organization for 3 years.
So this has been a passion for this
for a
isn't
while.
something that just came about.
Yeah.
And Linda, how about you? Tell me about your background.
Well, I grew up in rural Minnesota. My father was a Lutheran minister, and we lived in a lot of small towns. We had horses and dogs, but I didn't take such a very great interest in animals until later when I moved to New York City and I got my master's and PhD in English in New York, and then took a job here at ENMU. And it was here that I developed a specialization in my field called animal studies.
Mm-hmm.
So I was interested in it in kind of an academic way, teaching some courses called Animals in Narrative. And but the real event for me was something that happened to me personally here in Portales.
Okay.
And a neighbor had a very loud dog barking day and night, 24/7. And I didn't have any animals then. I wasn't really so very interested in having pets. And but I went to talk to my neighbor to see if we could work out something. And I noticed the dog's situation. He was living on a very short chain, 24/7. And when I spoke to the owner about what we could do about the situation, he said, "Well, I will muzzle my dog."
Oh.
And then it was like something happened to me then. I thought, a dog living on a short chain with a muzzle.
Wow.
And I thought, this is horrible. So I met with our animal control officers in Portales and asked if they could intervene. And they were helpful. And while I was meeting with them, I said, "By the way, can I volunteer at your shelter?" And they said, "You certainly can. We need the help."
So completely.
So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my volunteer work and my real passion for helping our domestic creatures in this town.
So tell me I have to know the story with the dog. Did it turn out well?
They moved, and I'm not sure what happened with the dog, but I must say that after they moved from the house they lived in, I went over when the house was empty and I dug out the steak.
Oh, so
and I threw it away. So I did that. I confess.
You confessed to removing something from someone's yard.
But, we all see these kinds of situations. And there's so much we can do, and we've found as volunteers in working with the shelter and with rescues and with special other welfare organizations in our area. So Ann and I teamed up after a while. She learned that I was working at the shelter, and she joined me, and we developed this kind of team. And we've been doing it since 2018.
Well, I was curious. That was something I was actually going to ask, was how your relationship, if you had taught together or worked together in some capacity.
I'll tell you something, Evelyn, it's really strange. Linda and I, we're in different fields. She's in English, I'm in theater, but we both got our doctorates at the same university, the City University of New York Graduate Center on 42nd Street.
At the same time.
At the same time. Oh, that is.
And we came to Eastern at the same August 2003.
Yeah.
But I
true.
didn't know her. I mean, obviously it's a big town, New York, New York.
I didn't know. I
Yeah, I
didn't know her.
know.
I knew every other Linda.
But it's really, I think it's very interesting that we came
Yeah.
from the largest city to this little small
Huh.
burg in New Mexico
D-
and found sort of a commonality.
Mhm.
And we've been working together in this capacity since 2018, even though I
Mhm.
knew her before, but I just knew her as a colleague,
Sure.
you know,
Right.
across
Across
the
the way.
campus.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
How much? I mean, and so automatically you had so much where you went to school and
Yeah.
living in New
Yeah.
York, and that's crazy. The timelines of how you knew some or were in the same areas but never actually got to
Well,
know
and
each other.
we developed a way of working together at the shelter that just kind of evolved kind of organically. But it really worked because we do videos and photos and we do dog care. And we each have what we bring to it, and we work together so well. And even there were times like during COVID when we couldn't work at the shelter because of the shutdown. But other than that, we have just been moving along together.
Very nice.
Yeah. And sometimes we talk about Beckett
Yes.
or Death of a Salesman or,
talk-
you know, shows that we have seen or want to
or
see.
books we've read.
Yes, exactly. Poets and, you know, and
Yeah.
Shakespeare,
Very
the
nice.
Greeks. So
yes, we
So,
do.
Linda, so when you asked if you could rescue, what did they say you could do? Or
They
what?
said, "Please come to the shelter," and they gave me a tour, and it was just kind of open for me to try to do what I could, and that include figuring out how to really work a mop bucket
Oh,
and how to give a dog a bath and do a lot of just socializing with the dog, sitting with them, taking them out for a little walk. Although I have to say, the the um, the expert on dog bathing is now Ann Beck. You're going to see some videos of her giving puppies baths. She's expert at it.
does a good job.
Yes, she does.
Does a good job. So, what are the areas? So, we do have a shelter here,
We do.
obviously. Location. I actually have an address for that.
You'll have an address.
Is 513 South Roosevelt Road T Place,
Mhm.
and that would be going towards Floyd, out on between
Yeah,
Portales
it's
and
kind
Floyd.
of behind the senior center.
Okay. So, if somebody wanted to volunteer, could they just would they make a phone call to go
Sure.
out there, or just show up, or what would they do?
You can call someone there, and we've given names
Okay.
of all the staff. There's email addresses, and right now they're open from 10 to 4, Monday through Friday. There is a waiver that must be signed, and a person who wants to work as a shelter volunteer has to be 18 years old.
Even with a parent, they still have to be 18
Yes, they
years
have to
old
be
themselves.
18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought,
But that means it's available for young adults, for students, for
Mhm.
people in the community.
for sure, for sure. So the animal control officer, here is a number on this. So if 575-356-4404. The supervisor out at the shelter is Kathy Woods, and Kelly McClellan is actually the department head of the shelter. They have a Facebook page, and then there's also, the phone numbers that you can call. So we'll put this up on the screen so that people can see. But just get involved. So the different areas. I know you said, bathing. There's always cleaning.
There's always cleaning.
How about just petting and loving on an animal?
Oh, it's so important because to help socialize a dog who's in a kennel
Mm-hmm.
for some time really helps to make them more adoptable. And Anne and I are really good at bringing out our little stools, sitting with a dog, perhaps a dog that's kind of nervous or shy,
Mm-hmm.
or even a boisterous one, and we take them out for walks and spend time with them, giving them treats, talking with them, getting them comfortable. And this can make a huge difference in terms of helping an animal become adoptable,
Sure.
especially one that's been kind of abandoned or living on the street or in an empty building. But dogs are amazing, as you know.
I do.
They come around. I call it coming out of their shell. And even within a few days, sometimes we see these dogs, their personalities emerge, and they become trustful of humans. And so that kind of volunteer work can make a huge difference in terms of getting a dog adopted.
You know, I always have this little analogy. If you have your best friend and your dog and put them in a trunk and drive around and you open the trunk, which one's going to be happy to see you? Chances are it's not going to be your friend, but the dog's still happy to see you. So, and I have shared, I'm more of a dog person, but the shelter out here takes dogs and cats.
And cats. Yeah.
So, you know.
We don't have so many cats right now. It's really a focus on dogs, but that could change.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if someone is in town and they find a dog that's been hurt or just is roaming, what does someone need to do?
Call the shelter.
Call the shelter.
Yeah.
And they have several staff people who are on call to deal with circumstances like that.
What about, is that just in the city limits or outside of town as well?
It's only in the city, although dangerous dogs are handled by a sheriff throughout the county. And then our animal shelter people get involved. But when it comes to a stray or abandoned dog, it's within the city limits now, except for dangerous animals outside in the county area.
And that's a tough deal too. I live out of town,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of people that just bring animals and dump them,
I
cats
know.
and dogs both.
I know.
And it's really difficult because obviously I can't take in every animal, but we don't have a location really of what to do. I know some of your social media sites are things that are really good, and I've actually used that before.
Yes.
Just to get some pictures out there and try to find an owner or someone new to take an animal.
Yeah.
So some of the things. So they can also walk the dogs, love the dogs, bathe them, pet them, clean up. There's also some other things. You said that your rate on the shelter is definitely you want to rehome every animal that you can. So something that if someone can't go to the shelter, couldn't they work with other organizations to try to set up a network to get that pet rehomed?
Well, you can work with rescues.
Okay.
And we do that now through a new organization in Portales called Portales Pals. And we've included information here about that. We have a website and an email address. And Portales Pals is working as a kind of clearinghouse for people who want to do something, but they're not sure where to start. So Ann and I work at the shelter, but we also work with Portales Pals, and we have connections with rescues. And also we work with some other animal welfare organizations in our area. I'm sure you've heard of High Plains Humane Society.
Yes.
They have an office and a facility actually in Clovis now, and they host a special, what are they called? Clinics.
Sure.
That are both vaccine clinics and spay-neuter clinics. So we like to be able to steer people into what will work for them.
Sure. And I know the humane or the rescue. What is it, Clovis?
The High Plains Humane Society.
The High Plains Humane Society. They actually do have some lower cost, like sliding scale cost on vaccinations.
They do.
And they do that a couple of times a year?
They do. They have clinics a couple times a year. It's really worth checking them out now that they have an address and phone number. They also need volunteers to help in their facility.
Sure.
So those are sort of one-time volunteer opportunities that are a lot of fun when they have I think it is, when they have a clinic for either vaccines or spay-neuter. They could really use some help during those clinics, and people are welcome to sign up.
Because I know they said that it's kind of a drive-through, and it's pretty massive, the amount of people last time they actually were encroaching on one of the main streets. And so they've moved it, I believe, to have it over towards where they do a food distribution.
Yeah.
So it's just a drive-up line. But then they also do a spay and neuter clinic as well.
They do.
So this just astounded me. The amount of animals from a single unsterilized cat and her offspring in 7 years can produce up to over 4,900 kittens. Is that not crazy?
Yeah.
Because they'll start having a litter within a year or so.
Spay-neuter is so important.
And so as time goes by, it just stacks on top. And then also an unspayed dog, they can have up to 500 puppies in their lifetime. And that's just from a single
Poor
unspayed
mother dog.
Right. So those just spay and neutering and stopping the loose dogs out and about and having more kittens and puppies.
Yes, and if people want to know about spay-neuter clinics, again, you can contact maybe the shelter, but High Plains Humane Society, or us at Portales Pals, and we will make sure that you have up-to-date information about when there's a clinic.
And your Portales Pals, you have a site or an email address, Portales Pals, that's all together, at gmail.com. Email, and you'll actually be talking with probably one of these two ladies on that. And then also their website, www.portalespals.com. And they also have you have a Facebook page as well. So, and I know you guys are really good about putting pictures and things up.
Well, thanks to Anne.
Are you the picture taker and the one that promotes that?
She's the performer.
Yeah.
She's the dog handler, the cat handler. Yeah, and we found, maybe Anne knows better than I do why that's appealing, but working together and doing a video and chatting about a dog or a cat has a certain appeal. I guess I'm not really sure why. But
Well, one of the things is people watching will see that the dog is friendly.
oh yeah, that's true.
And that, often I'll put my hand in near the dog's mouth, and they'll begin to lick my hand to show that this dog is not aggressive, is, not a frightened or frightening dog. So that's really important.
Well, and I think when you see the positive spin, if you focus on the downside of some things, but if you look on that positive of what an influence you can have, just small steps in whatever way.
And could I say, people who are kind of interested in working in as a volunteer at the shelter but don't, they often tell me, I'd want to take them all home. I hear that a lot.
I do too.
And I would like to give a different perspective about that. And that is, because you can't take them home, you can save so many more. You can help save so many more. And I'm sure you've heard fosters say, it's hard to part with a dog we're fostering who's going into a permanent home. But it means that I can help so many more animals. And I just wish people would give themselves a chance to feel the satisfaction that comes from helping many animals rather than taking a few home.
Well, and that might be something students or elderly or whatever, you're not able to take care of the animal all the time, but if you can get involved in foster one part of the time, maybe during the school year, someone else can take it on until they find their home.
If someone has an hour or two a week or on occasion or during a holiday, there's ways we can plug you into helping.
And tell me the story about Bear. What is her story?
Her story is that she and her sibling, Cub, were at the shelter as puppies. And I don't know if they were found or whether somebody actually just surrendered them, but they came in together. And we were so lucky because a woman and her husband, who are Altera, are fostering them. And there are two of them, a girl and a boy. And the foster have decided to adopt the little boy, Cub. So we just have Bear.
Okay.
So Bear's at my feet, and I'm telling you, she is a wonderful puppy. She's learning how to walk on the leash. She right now is lying down on the rug, very relaxed, with her eyes on Hannah Knight, the camera person. So she came around and she was very curious about the space and was chewing a little bit, but now she's just totally relaxed.
And so she's actually a dog that wants to find that forever home.
And should have a shot of Bear because she's in her perfect spot.
She's just down there charming everybody to pieces.
She's right now she's relaxed, lying at her side,
and
taking a little bit of a nap.
And recently chose and fostered a dog who was in the shelter and didn't have much of a prospect, frankly, and now is working as a service dog for a veteran.
Yeah.
And I love hearing this story. The dog is now working with a veteran who would otherwise have been limited because of the suffering from PTSD. And there's an organization called Super Dogs for Superheroes. And Anne's work with a dog named Colby, now called Seven, right?
Yeah.
And made it possible it's a win-win situation.
For both.
For both.
For both of them.
Anne had to part with the dog
Yeah.
But she did it in good spirit.
Well,
Yeah.
it's much easier when you know they're going to have their
Oh
person
yeah.
and have that home and dedicated just to them, and they're in a good spot. And then,
Yeah.
like you said, our veteran, that helped that person
No.
as well. So it's amazing. I know I've read about taking service dogs that are where they go into nursing homes and into hospitals, and they're literally therapy dogs,
Yes.
just petting and loving on an animal. So, um, what about if you don't really have the time, but you want to donate or something like that?
Good.
Tell me what you can do
You can
for the
donate to the
shelter.
shelter. They cannot take financial donations,
Okay.
but they can take food, dog and cat food, kitten, puppy food, unopened,
Okay.
treats, bedding, soft bedding that can be laundered, leashes, collars, harnesses, those things they can take.
And little travel kennels and carriers
Kennels.
and things
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
right? All those
Cat
kinds
carriers.
of
Those are very useful.
probably toys. They probably
And
get
toys.
pretty
I would suggest hard toys that can be, washed, that
Oh,
won't get wet and mildewy.
like your
Yeah.
stuffed animal type toys aren't near as good, and they're going to be sharing with other animals.
Yeah.
Now, you did tell me when animals are taken into the shelter, they do receive some vaccination, right?
They do. They do. They get the it's a combination vaccine, and I'm not a veterinarian, but it's a combination of parvo distemper vaccine, which is important, especially for very young dogs like Bear here. She got hers when she came in, because I'm sure you've heard of the distemper problems that
Mhm.
sometimes develop in our region, and parvo is a very dangerous
Sure.
virus, hard one to beat. And so we give those to them. I mean, our shelter people, staff, give those vaccines when the dogs come in.
I know I had a little schnauzer, and he got distemper,
Oh,
and he lived, but they said it
it's
was
hard.
really rare, and had 3 days in IVs, and had
They
a pretty
can survive.
good little bill after the fact,
I
but he
bet.
survived.
Yeah, good.
But it was
Glad to hear
distemper, and I
it.
think he had to have been around it out in the dirt or somewhere he
Yes.
was at
Yes.
because he wasn't around other animals, but
Yeah.
still. Lots of great, something I wanted to touch on, your national organizations that you have a lot. You, there's some information here that just startled me. So I'm being a proponent for our local shelters on this.
Good.
Your ASPCA, the American Society for Prevention of Cruelty, their CEO in 2023 base salary was $750,000,
Ooh.
$276,000 of bonuses, and $47,000 in benefits, and 34, just a small amount, 34.4% is shelter vet fees and things like that, and then the rest of it is mission. And I'm not sure what that means. So some of your others, like PETA and different ones,
Mhm.
they're a very big national organization. Chances are they're not here. They're not going to be helping with our animals and pets in our communities.
Not likely. Maybe
There's one.
Is there one that does?
Best Friends in
Yes.
southern Utah has a connection with us here in
Mm-hmm.
Portales and with Labor of Love.
Okay.
And they often come down, and we are in conversation with Best
Mhm.
Friends.
Okay.
So of all the organizations, if somebody wanted to give, and
Mm.
they're a no-kill shelter,
Mm.
very
Right.
large. I mean, very large.
All
It's
right.
like, it's like Caesar Milan's, ranch. It's
Wow.
got a lot of acreage, a lot of dogs and cats,
Okay.
and also other animals.
But your local communities, I mean, you see animals out roaming. And
Oh, I
so
know.
when you put your money in wherever your local community is into those shelters and helping volunteers and helping get the
It
food
all
and
goes.
things.
It all goes to the animals, and that's, I think, one
Right.
of the reasons I love it is when there's a concern or when there's a misunderstanding of some kind. I always go back to my belief that it's all about the animals. It's our volunteer time. It's the donations that people give. None of it's going to a CEO.
Right.
Yeah.
You ladies, I know you don't draw a paycheck, and you probably put a
No.
lot of your own dollars
Yes.
into this. I
Yeah,
know you
little.
did a big collection for beds and different things
Well, we
like
collect
that.
donations for things, but we're
Okay.
very specific about
Good.
where they're going.
So just, for everyone, just really consider your local shelters and
Mhm.
dig in. And if there's an area you can volunteer in whatever capacity, get busy with that.
Yes.
Well, ladies, I hope we highlighted that some. And let me give this number one more, or the website to get a hold of you, or this will email, portalespals@gmail.com. and they can talk with you ladies and get some
Sure.
more information. So thank you for being here with me
Thank
this
you.
morning and getting this
Right.
information.
Thank you.
And to all of you watching today, thank you, and we will see you next time. Cheers.